My name is Anders Rovald, and I'm born in Denmark, an artist. Been working as an artist pretty much as long as I've been an adult. And my main material is ceramics, but it's not only. This is something that I've been working with since I was 15 years old, pretty much. And something that's always been a big part of my life. So many of my ideas are resolved with ceramics, and I think through ceramics. And so when Greg Orley got in touch with me about possibly doing this project, this was the first thing that I thought about. Was interested in doing something in the lobbies, and I, having been studying staggered pyramid shape turned upside down, and so I thought it was interesting to then take that as a kind of lead-off point, his references to deco, and then take the much more interesting, vibrant type of deco that we have in Detroit, which I think is something that's very unique for the Midwest. They're using Native American and First Nation American kind of imagery, and that's why we have these beautiful kind of colored tiles. And so I was interested in bringing that sense of color back into Namazaki's design as a way of sort of flipping around the idea of his kind of postmodern stance, and then taking back some of those references in a much more literal way. But obviously I don't want to just replicate what was already in the Guardian building and in the Fisher building, but I wanted to do something that had a sense of this coming from the 21st century. And so when I started looking into the tiles and thinking about tiles, I've been about between 1/16 and an inch thick, which come in very large sheets that are about 10 by 3 feet long. And so if you couple that up with digital fabrication and digital kind of cutting, then you can suddenly start doing some really interesting things that hasn't been done in ceramic tile before. And so what I've been doing is basically designing the patterns as they are now, and then working very closely with a water jetting company called Leading Edge Cutting Solutions that's then been cutting all these patterns into shape. And they can do this in a super precise way, which then can allow for this very kind of specific, very precise design to come around. And it's something probably wasn't possible to do just even 10 years ago. The ceramic tile didn't exist, and water jetting was still a fairly new thing in that point.
Hi, I'm Mark Budzinski with Leading Edge Cutting Solutions in Waterford, Michigan. I own a water jet cutting business, and about a year ago, Anders Rupal came by my shop to inquire about cutting some unique tile material. It's an 1/8 inch thick ceramic tile, which I've never heard before. It comes in about 4 by 10 sheets from Europe. So he had a project in mind to create basically a pattern for the Columbia Center walls.
These intersecting lines all have vantage points. And so I was interested in having those kind of vantage points come in as well as a way of breaking up the two-dimensional surface using the lines and by that visualizing kind of other spaces or some other kind of way where you can begin to see this interweaving pattern come out.
It encompassed like 800 different unique tile shapes, all in a variety of patterns that he developed.
In the patterns, there are 2 colors that come together in each of the sort of sections, in each of those vantage points. And so in one building, it's there are 3 groups of color, and then in the other building, it's another different kind of grouping of colors. So you have 3 groups of color there, but it's not the same colors coming to each other. And so what I was interested in is having that sort of subtle change from one place to the other. So even though these buildings are pretty much identical, you still feel as if when you study it, when you look at it a little bit, that things are different, and that this will bring out that slight subtlety that Namazaki was also using within it.
We had to take essentially a PDF print that he supplied, and then we had to dissect every single tile, straighten all the lines up, clean everything up. We had to create grout lines for each of the tiles, label each one, kind of like 1 through 800 something.
When we started talking about it, it was pretty much a very open pitch. They just, where do you want to do something? What do you want to do? And I was very interested in those walls in particular because they are, you know, they don't exist like one full panel that you can see from any specific point. They're always broken up. So what I wanted to do was to do something that was integrated into the building and still existed within the main structure of the building rather than something that begins to kind of take it over. And obviously they have a large presence there and I want them to have that. But at the same time, I don't want them to become this thing that then begins to kind of take over what Namasaki had done to begin with. And so I like the sort of slow reveal that comes with it, and I like that that these murals and these panels and these wall pieces basically have a slow reveal that happens. It happens through the color, it happens through the pattern, but it definitely also happens by moving around with them. And it's really about experience, and as you're moving as the people that use these lobbies, you know, go back and forth, go down, get a cup of coffee, go over to the other building, have meetings, get to greet people down the lobby, whatever, you know. And by that, this kind of slow reveal then begins to happen, rather than something that's just there in your face and you can kind of take it or leave it.
It was pretty involved. Just to do the prep work was probably over 100 hours worth of work. But then once we got going, it went pretty smooth, and we were able to get them transported safely with some crating that we developed.
For me, it was interesting. It was important to kind of bring something in that could kind of take some of the vibrancy of the sort of deco era, but also make something that would have a sort of an interesting marriage to the sort of very 80s sort of feel that the lobbies have with the red granite and the polished brass and everything else, and something that could sort of, you know, build some contrast with the sort of overall environment of the lobby.
It was very interesting. It was very challenging. I don't think I've taken anything on this in depth as far as the number of unique pieces, and also the material itself is very fragile. So 2 people had to handle it, and any wrong move and the whole sheet could crack.
Yeah. I mean, they've both the two companies that I've been working with, Leading Edge Cutting Solution and Wolverine Tile, have been amazing. I feel really fortunate to have found those two as contractors. We went through a lot of different options on that side of it, and I think we ended up, it seemed for Wolverine, they're the ones that did the original buildings as well, so they have familiarity with the building and they understood the buildings well. Obviously, when you get then to tiling, there are much more kind of, you have to allow for more tolerance, but that's where the craft of the tilers will come in. Matt, who's been the main tiler there, has been doing an amazing job. He really knows his craft like nobody else's business, and that's really been amazing to see. Because if it hadn't been for him, we might have ended up in a very different place. And I've had some exchange with about another project with Mark at Leading Edge Cutting Solutions before, and so I felt very comfortable with him and his team out there, and they've been really great and very, very flexible and adaptable as well when you know issues have had to be resolved on the way, which fortunately there hasn't been that many, but there could have been. As it is with a complicated thing like this, we're talking about I think all in all about 800 individual tiles that all need to come into this very rigid pattern that only have, I mean, we only have a tolerance of, you know, a couple of inches on either side, and even with that said, within the actual pattern, the tolerance is down to like an 1/8 or 1/16 of an inch. So it has to be very precise on everybody's part. And they've been doing an amazing job. We're almost there, so I don't want to jinx it yet.
We had a few pieces cracked on us during cutting, and I know during installation they had a few that cracked. So we, you know, I was back and forth a few times to replace some tiles, but overall I think it went well. Definitely, we went up a learning curve along with the Anders, and I think along with the installers. We all went up this learning curve together, and it was very, very challenging, but it was very rewarding too when we finally saw the finished product.
Yeah, and I think that's what's been interesting about, just from a very practical side about doing this whole project is, you know, you basically need to get 4 teams of people coming together in a like kind of Unity. There's the management of the building, the Kirko people have been amazing to work with, and then the Wolverine Tylers and Leading Edge, and then myself, and getting all of the four of us to really be in sync and be able to kind of get this to the point where we wanted it to. So it's been quite an amazing process, and we've been at it for about a year now, I think, to get to this point, and it's really exciting. It's finally coming together.
I stopped by there a few weeks ago, and it looked really, really good in person. It was really interesting to see it actually come to fruition.
It's very unique to find a client like this, and so I would be very interested in doing things like this again. I think it's an interesting way to be working. It's a fun process, and it's a very kind of unique way of engaging with specific places where people live and people work and people engage. It's very different from the gallery work that I normally do. So there's something quite interesting about that, and playing around with that. But it's fairly unique that you find a client that has a budget like this, who's able to and willing to do a thing like this. So if there are, why not?